On Christmas Eve, the poor mother's daughter says, "Mr. My mom is crying in the bathroom." Streets were decorated with glowing bulbs. Shop windows displayed colorful ornaments, and the air carried the soft hum of holiday music. People hurried along with wrapped gifts in their hands. Children laughed as they dragged their parents from one shop to another, and carolers sang songs of joy and hope. But in a small, worn-down apartment at the edge of the city, the world felt very different. For one mother and her young daughter, the festive cheer of Christmas seemed far away, almost like a story from another world that didn't belong to them. Inside the apartment, the heating barely worked, leaving the small rooms cold and drafty. The walls were old, with peeling paint, and the wooden floor creaked under every step. A thin blanket was folded on the sofa, its fabric frayed at the edges. There was no Christmas tree, no twinkling lights, and no gift boxes waiting to be opened. The mother, a woman of gentle features but tired eyes, moved quietly from the kitchen to the living room. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was late in the evening, almost time for the city to celebrate with joy and laughter. She could hear the faint sound of bells from a church down the street, and distant voices of families enjoying the holiday. But inside their small apartment there was only silence, broken occasionally by the soft whimper of her daughter, who was sitting on the floor, hugging a worn-out doll. The daughter, a little girl of about 7 years old, looked up at her mother. Her eyes were wide and bright, but they held a hint of worry that no child should carry. "Mama," she asked softly, "why don't we have a Christmas tree this year?" Her small voice trembled, not out of fear but out of confusion. She didn't understand why every other home seemed full of warmth and joy, while theirs felt so quiet and empty. The mother knelt down beside her, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She gently stroked the girl's hair and said, "We will have our own little Christmas, sweetheart. It doesn't need to be like anyone else's." But inside, the mother felt a wave of sadness. She had tried so hard. She had worked extra hours at the small cafe she managed, hoping to save enough money to buy a small gift, some treats, or even a single decoration. But the bills had piled up faster than she could pay them, and the rent, the food, and the other necessities left her with almost nothing. She wanted her daughter to experience the magic of Christmas, but it seemed that the world had other plans. The little girl didn't ask for much. She only wanted her mother to smile, to feel happy, to enjoy the warmth that the holiday season promised to so many others. But the mother's worries and exhaustion made it hard to share any joy. Every time she thought about how little they had, her chest tightened, and tears threatened to spill. She told herself she had to stay strong, that she had to keep pretending for her daughter's sake. Yet, despite her efforts, the sadness often crept in when no one was watching. At one point, the mother went to the bathroom to wash her hands. The cold water splashed against her face, and she looked at herself in the mirror. She saw the fatigue etched into her features, the shadows under her eyes, and the quiet desperation that had been growing over the months. She tried to take a deep breath, telling herself she had to stay composed. But when she thought about how she could not give her daughter the Christmas she deserved, the tears came anyway. She leaned against the sink, letting the hot tears fall silently. She didn't want her daughter to see her cry. Not like this, not when the girl was so young and innocent. Meanwhile, the little girl sat on the floor, holding her doll tightly. She noticed that her mother had been gone longer than usual and started to feel uneasy. She had seen her mother look tired before, but she had never seen her cry like this. The girl's mind tried to understand, but she only felt a small, heavy knot of worry in her chest. She wondered if she had done something wrong or if her mother was sick. She whispered to herself, "Mama, are you okay?" But there was no answer. The silence of the apartment was so loud that it made the girl shiver. Finally, curiosity and concern overcame her shyness. She tiptoed to the bathroom door and gently knocked. "Mama," she asked softly. No response came. Her small heart pounded and her eyes filled with tears. She tried again, a little louder this time. "Mama, are you okay?" Still nothing. The girl's tiny hands pressed against the door as she felt a surge of worry. She remembered that her mother had said to her many times, "Be brave, my little one," and she tried to be brave now. But seeing her mother like this, crying alone, was something she couldn't face alone. With a trembling voice, the girl decided to ask for help. She remembered the kind man who sometimes walked by their apartment building, smiling at children and greeting people with warmth. He was a stranger, yes, but he had a gentle look that made her feel safe. Holding her doll tightly, she stepped out of the apartment and ran to the stairs, down to the street. The city outside seemed so bright and happy, a world she had always dreamed of being part of. But at this moment, all she could think about was her mother, and she felt a sense of urgency she had never felt before. When she finally reached the street, she saw the man passing by. She called out, her small voice carrying across the sidewalk. "Mister." "Mister?" The man turned and saw the little girl standing there, her eyes wide and pleading. She ran toward him, nearly tripping over her own feet. "Mister, my mom is crying in the bathroom," she said, her voice shaking. The man knelt down to her level, trying to understand what she meant. He saw the fear and sincerity in her eyes, and he realized this was not a simple request. Something serious was happening inside that small apartment. The man's face softened with concern. "Where does your mom live, little one?" he asked gently. She pointed toward the building and said, "Upstairs in our apartment. Please come, she's very sad." Without hesitation, the man followed her, feeling the weight of responsibility and empathy. They climbed the stairs together, each step heavy with anticipation. The little girl clutched his hand, feeling comfort in his presence. Back in the apartment, the mother was still at the sink, unaware that her daughter had left to seek help. She wiped her eyes and tried to regain composure, thinking of ways to make the evening better despite everything. She hummed softly to herself, a melody her daughter loved, hoping it would lift her spirits. But just as she leaned back against the sink, she heard a soft knock on the door and then a familiar voice she didn't expect. The little girl's voice called from the other side, "Mama, it's okay. Mister is here." The mother froze for a moment, then slowly opened the door. Standing there was her daughter, holding her hand out to the kind stranger. The mother's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of gratitude, of relief, of hope. She realized that even in the hardest moments there could be a light shining through, guiding her out of despair. The man smiled gently and said, "I'm here to help. Don't worry." His calm and compassionate presence brought a sense of peace that the mother hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time that evening, she felt she wasn't alone, that someone cared. She knelt down to hug her daughter tightly, whispering, "Thank you for looking out for me, my little one." The girl hugged her back, feeling a mixture of fear, relief, and love. In that small apartment, as the cold night pressed against the thin walls, a quiet warmth began to spread. It wasn't the warmth of decorations or gifts, but the warmth of connection, compassion, and love. The mother realized that sometimes, being strong didn't mean holding back tears or hiding your struggles. It meant letting others help, accepting kindness, and trusting that even small acts could make a difference. And the little girl learned that even when the world seemed dark, she could be brave and take action to help someone she loved. As the night deepened, the city outside continued its celebration, lights glowing and music playing. Inside the apartment, the mother, her daughter, and the stranger sat together, talking quietly, sharing smiles, and finding a sense of hope that they thought had been lost. That Christmas Eve, though different from what anyone might imagine, became a memory they would carry forever, not for gifts or decorations, but for the reminder that kindness and courage could bring light even in the darkest hours. The little girl's small hand held tightly to the stranger's as they climbed the narrow, creaking stairs toward her apartment. Each step seemed louder than usual in the quiet of the building, and with every passing moment, her heart raced faster. She kept looking up at the stranger, hoping he would understand the urgency in her voice. To her, the moment felt larger than life, as if the entire Christmas spirit depended on him helping her mother. When they reached the apartment door, the little girl hesitated for a second, then knocked gently. "Mama," she called softly. The mother's voice came from the bathroom, shaky and tired. "I'm here, sweetheart." The little girl's eyes darted toward the stranger. "Please," she whispered, "she needs help." The man nodded reassuringly and stepped closer, his calm presence making her feel a little safer. The mother, hearing the voices, felt a mixture of surprise and alarm. She had not expected her daughter to leave the apartment, let alone bring a stranger into their home. For a moment, she wondered if she should feel angry, but the concern in her child's voice quickly replaced any frustration. She wiped her tears and took a deep breath, summoning what courage she could. Slowly, she opened the bathroom door. Her eyes fell on the stranger, and for a moment there was silence. The kind, gentle expression on his face conveyed no judgment, only concern. The little girl stepped forward. "Mama, he is here to help," she said, tugging on her mother's sleeve. The mother knelt down to her daughter's level, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Thank you, my little one," she whispered, her voice trembling. Then she looked at the stranger, unsure of what to say. I don't even know how to explain," she began, her hands wringing nervously. "It's just, we don't have much, and I wanted to make this Christmas special for her, for my daughter, but I can't. I've tried. I really have, but it's not enough." The stranger nodded, listening carefully without interrupting. He didn't offer pity or empty words. Instead, he allowed her to speak freely, to release the worry and fear she had carried alone for so long. The mother's voice trembled as she continued. She spoke of long hours at the cafe, of bills that seemed to grow faster than her paychecks, of days when she skipped meals so her daughter could have enough to eat. She admitted how lonely it felt to try to be strong all the time, and how every failure seemed magnified on nights like this, when the world celebrated and she had nothing to give. Through it all, the little girl stayed close, holding her mother's hand. She watched the tears slide down her mother's cheeks and felt her heart ache, wishing she could take the sadness away. Though she was only 7, she understood enough to know her mother was struggling under the weight of responsibility and love. In her innocence, she saw the quiet courage her mother carried, even when it made her cry. The stranger finally spoke, his voice soft but steady. "I can see how much you love your daughter, that is clear, but love alone can feel heavy when you don't have support. It's okay to ask for help sometimes. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." The mother looked at him, surprised by the kindness and understanding in his words. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, as if they truly saw the effort and the worry that consumed her daily life. She felt a small weight lift from her shoulders, even if just a little. The little girl, noticing her mother's slight change in expression, felt hope stir inside her. She had come to the stranger because she trusted that he would understand. Children, in their innocence, often see things adults overlook. She had noticed her mother's sadness in ways others did not, and she had acted on it, brave enough to reach out to a stranger. Now, seeing her mother listening, almost smiling, she felt a sense of pride. The mother sighed, sitting down on the edge of the bed. "It's just, I wanted her to have a magical Christmas," she admitted, looking at her daughter with a soft, aching smile. "I thought maybe I could make her forget about the hard days for just one night. But I failed, and I can't stop thinking about that." Her voice broke again, and the little girl leaned against her, hugging her tightly. The stranger sat down beside them, careful not to crowd the small space. "You haven't failed," he said gently. "A magical Christmas isn't always about gifts or decorations. Sometimes it's about love, presence, and caring. You are giving her those things already. That is what she will remember most." The mother looked at him, absorbing the words, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in weeks. She realized that she had been so focused on material things that she had forgotten the true meaning of Christmas, the small, quiet moments of connection and understanding. The little girl smiled faintly. "See, Mama, he understands," she said. Her words were simple, but to the mother, they felt like a gentle reminder that her efforts were not invisible. She hugged her daughter tightly, her tears slowly turning into a mix of relief and hope. The stranger continued, "Let's see what we can do together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we can make tonight special in our own way. A Christmas that belongs to you, just the two of you, with a little help from me." The mother looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Could someone she didn't know truly care this much? Could kindness really exist in the middle of all their struggles? She nodded slowly, feeling a fragile thread of hope forming. The little girl's eyes sparkled with excitement. Even though they didn't have presents under a tree or a house filled with decorations, she felt the first warmth of joy that evening. She imagined small ways they could celebrate, singing songs together, making simple decorations from what they had, and sharing stories and laughter. It was not the grand Christmas she had seen in the shops or on television, but it was theirs, and somehow that made it more special. The mother stood up, brushing her tears, and took a deep breath. "All right," she said softly, "let's try. Let's make tonight something we can remember." Her daughter clapped her hands in quiet excitement. Even in her small way, she understood the significance of these words. It was a promise, not of perfection, but of togetherness, hope, and love. The stranger helped them gather what little they had. A few pieces of paper, some string, and a small candle became the tools of their Christmas creativity. They made paper chains to hang around the room, cut out stars and hearts to decorate the walls, and lit the candle to bring a warm glow to the otherwise dim apartment. The mother laughed softly as she struggled to fold the paper correctly, and the little girl giggled at her mistakes. Even the stranger joined in, helping to shape decorations and telling stories that made the girl's eyes widen with wonder. Time seemed to slow as the small trio worked together. The mother felt the weight of her worries lighten, replaced by the simple joy of being present with her child. She realized that the magic she had been chasing wasn't in stores or gifts, but in moments like this, where love, kindness, and creativity filled the space around them. Her heart swelled as she watched her daughter beam, knowing that despite their struggles, they were making memories that would last a lifetime. As the evening grew darker outside, the apartment transformed. The walls, once bare and cold, now held colorful paper chains and stars. The soft glow of the candle reflected in the mother's eyes, and she felt an unfamiliar but welcome warmth in her chest. The little girl sat on the floor, her doll beside her, watching the decorations with a quiet sense of pride. The stranger stood back, smiling softly, knowing that the true magic of Christmas had already begun to bloom in their hearts. The mother sat down beside her daughter and whispered, "Thank you for helping us remember what really matters." The little girl hugged her tightly, and the stranger knelt to join them. In that small, cold apartment, the warmth of love, hope, and kindness became the brightest light of all. It wasn't a perfect Christmas, but it was theirs, and that made it extraordinary. For the little girl, the night became a lesson in courage and compassion. She had noticed her mother's pain, and instead of feeling helpless, she took action. Her small act of bravery had brought help, comfort, and joy into their home. She realized that sometimes, even children could make a difference, and that caring for someone you love could create real change. For the mother, the evening became a reminder that she was not alone. The struggles of life could be heavy, but kindness existed in the world, waiting to be shared and accepted. She learned that asking for help, even in small ways, did not mean weakness. It meant strength and trust. And in the quiet moments of shared laughter and creation, she found a sense of peace that had been missing for a long time. The stranger, too, felt a sense of fulfillment. His role was simple: listen, understand, and offer help, but the impact of compassion was profound. He saw how small gestures could lift burdens, how presence could heal invisible wounds, and how hope could grow in even the most unexpected places. That night, he witnessed a family strengthened not by gifts, but by understanding, empathy, and shared humanity. As the night wore on, the mother, daughter, and stranger sat together, sharing stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. The city outside continued to celebrate, with lights glowing and music echoing through the streets. Inside their apartment, a different kind of celebration unfolded, one of love, resilience, and the simple magic that comes from being present for one another. And so, what began as a moment of sadness, fear, and uncertainty became a night of connection, hope, and gentle joy. For this mother and daughter, Christmas Eve would always be remembered, not for presents or decorations, but for the courage to reach out, the willingness to help, and the warmth of hearts coming together when it was needed most. The apartment had transformed in small but meaningful ways. Paper chains and handmade stars hung from the walls, a small candle flickered on the table, and the air carried a soft warmth of hope and laughter. Yet, even with these little touches, the mother felt a lingering heaviness in her chest. She had begun to realize that the struggles of everyday life were not so easily brushed away. Bills, work, and the weight of responsibility waited for her outside this moment of comfort. Still, for the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe deeply and enjoy the simple magic of being present with her daughter. The little girl, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her doll beside her, was radiant with excitement. Her eyes sparkled as she observed the decorations and watched her mother smile, albeit faintly. She knew that the stranger's presence had made all the difference. If it weren't for him, the apartment might have remained cold and silent, a place where sorrow dominated the night. But now there was laughter, shared creativity, and a sense of possibility. She had taken the first brave step by seeking help, and she could already see the impact of her courage. The stranger noticed the mother's hesitation and spoke gently. "Would you like me to help make the evening even more special? We can do things together that don't cost money, but still bring joy." The mother looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. I don't know if I can," she whispered, her voice catching. "We've never had someone do this for us before. I'm not sure how to accept it." He smiled warmly. "You don't have to know how, you just have to let yourself enjoy it. Let us help you create a memory for your daughter, something she will remember for years to come. You've already done so much, and this is just a little extra." His words, simple and kind, touched something deep within her. For so long she had carried her burdens alone, believing she had to be strong in every moment. But now she realized that accepting help did not make her weak, it made her human. Together, they began planning small but meaningful activities for the evening. The stranger suggested they write letters to themselves, reflecting on the year and sharing hopes for the future. The little girl eagerly grabbed a piece of paper and colored pens, while her mother hesitated before slowly picking up a pencil. At first, her writing was shaky, filled with self-doubt, but the stranger encouraged her gently, reminding her that it was not about perfection but expression. The mother began to write words she had been holding inside for months, her fears, her dreams, her love for her daughter. The little girl, meanwhile, wrote about her excitement, her wishes for her mother's happiness, and her hope for a brighter future. Her words were simple, innocent, and full of warmth. She shared them aloud with the stranger, who listened with full attention, nodding and smiling at her heartfelt thoughts. Her mother, listening to her daughter's words, felt a mix of pride and relief. In that moment, she realized how much courage and compassion her daughter carried within her, despite her young age. After writing, they moved on to another activity the stranger suggested: storytelling. Each of them took turns telling a story, no matter how small or simple, about their memories, dreams, or experiences. The little girl told stories of imaginary adventures with her doll, of magical lands and talking animals. Her laughter was contagious, and even her mother could not help but giggle. The mother shared stories from her own childhood, memories of simpler times and fleeting joys that had stayed with her despite the hardships. The stranger shared gentle stories of kindness he had witnessed in the world, reminding them that even in dark times, good people existed. As they shared stories, the apartment seemed to glow with a warmth that went far beyond the candlelight. The mother realized that magic was not about gifts or decorations. It was in connection, in shared laughter, and in the feeling of being understood and supported. Her daughter's eyes sparkled as she listened, realizing that joy could be found even in small, unexpected moments. The stranger's presence acted as a bridge, helping them both see that even ordinary nights could become extraordinary when shared with care and compassion. After the stories, the stranger suggested they make a simple Christmas feast from whatever was available in the apartment. The mother had a few basic ingredients: bread, eggs, a small piece of cheese, and together they transformed them into something resembling a festive meal. The little girl helped arrange the plates, while the mother prepared the food, and the stranger offered small tips and encouragement. It wasn't a grand feast, but it became a celebration in its own right. The mother smiled, realizing that her daughter's joy did not come from abundance, but from shared effort and attention. As they sat together eating their humble meal, the mother felt a sense of gratitude she had not experienced in months. She looked at her daughter's bright, smiling face and the stranger's gentle, supportive expression, and she felt a warmth that no amount of money could buy. The little girl, with crumbs on her cheeks, laughed freely, enjoying the moment without worry. For the mother, it was a reminder that happiness could exist even amidst hardship, and that kindness from strangers could restore faith in humanity. After the meal, they moved to another activity, making small decorations for the apartment from scraps of paper and old ribbons. The little girl eagerly cut stars, hearts, and snowflakes, while her mother carefully folded and glued the pieces together. The stranger helped guide them, offering gentle advice and encouragement. As they worked, conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter, questions, and gentle teasing. The mother realized that these moments of creation, of teamwork, of shared joy were more precious than any store-bought gift. The apartment now looked cheerful in its own modest way. Paper chains hung from the ceiling, stars sparkled on the walls, and the soft candlelight reflected off the decorations. The little girl ran from one side of the room to the other, showing her mother how her imagination had transformed the space. Her mother laughed, feeling a sense of pride and relief. She realized that the memory of this Christmas would be tied not to what she could not afford, but to what she could create with love, attention, and shared effort. As the evening continued, the stranger suggested one final activity, a moment of reflection and gratitude. Each of them took turns sharing what they were thankful for. The little girl expressed her gratitude for her mother's love, the stranger's kindness, and the small joys of the evening. Her mother shared her gratitude for her daughter's bravery, the stranger's support, and the reminder that even in hard times, love and hope could exist. The stranger spoke of the courage he saw in both of them, and how their willingness to connect and support one another was a gift in itself. The mother felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She realized that she had spent so much time worrying about what she could not provide that she had overlooked what she already had: a loving daughter, moments of joy, and the presence of kindness in the world. For the little girl, the night had been an adventure and a lesson in courage and empathy. She had taken a small step by seeking help, and it had led to an evening full of warmth, laughter, and hope. The stranger, too, felt fulfillment. He had arrived with nothing more than a willingness to listen and help, yet the impact was greater than he could have imagined. In a single evening, he had witnessed courage, love, and resilience. He had seen how small gestures of care could transform lives, and how hope could grow even in difficult circumstances. He realized that his role, though seemingly minor, had helped ignite a spark of joy and comfort that would stay with this mother and daughter for years. As the night grew late, the mother tucked her daughter into bed. The little girl held her handmade star close, her eyes heavy with sleep but sparkling with happiness. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. "This is the best Christmas ever." The mother kissed her forehead, tears of gratitude and love in her eyes. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters," she said softly. The stranger quietly gathered his things, preparing to leave, but the mother stopped him. "Wait," she said. "You've done so much for us. How can we ever thank you?" He shook his head gently. "No thanks are needed. Just remember what we've shared tonight. Remember that kindness exists, and that sometimes reaching out for help is the strongest thing you can do." He smiled, giving the little girl's hand a gentle squeeze, and then stepped out into the quiet night. The mother sat beside the bed for a moment, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. The apartment, though modest and small, was filled with warmth and love. She realized that even in the most difficult times, moments of compassion and courage could create memories that were priceless. She had learned that happiness was not in what she could buy, but in what she could give: presence, love, and care. That Christmas Eve, the mother and daughter had discovered the true meaning of the holiday. It wasn't about gifts or wealth. It was about connection, understanding, and the quiet magic of caring for one another. The little girl's bravery, the stranger's kindness, and the mother's love had together transformed a night of despair into one of hope and joy. And as the city outside sparkled with lights and music, the small apartment glowed with the warmth of hearts united by compassion, courage, and love. The night ended not with grandeur, but with quiet reflection and a sense of fulfillment. The mother, holding her daughter's hand, whispered a promise to herself. She would carry this lesson forward, remembering that hope and kindness could be found in the smallest of actions. And the little girl, asleep with a smile on her face, dreamed of a world where love and bravery could light up even the darkest of nights. The night had grown deep and quiet, and the city outside their small apartment buzzed with the distant sounds of Christmas celebration. Yet inside, a different kind of warmth filled the room. The mother sat beside her daughter's bed, watching her sleep peacefully, her small chest rising and falling in soft rhythm. The candlelight flickered gently, casting shadows that danced on the walls decorated with handmade stars and paper chains. What had begun as a night filled with worry and tears had slowly transformed into a memory that the mother and daughter would carry forever. Even as the mother sat quietly, the events of the evening replayed in her mind. She thought about how her daughter had bravely sought help from a stranger, how that small act had led to so much comfort and joy. She reflected on the kindness of the man who had arrived at her doorstep, listening without judgment and offering support in the simplest, yet most profound ways. It struck her how a single act of compassion could change the course of a night, even a life. She realized that the world was not always cruel, and that moments of genuine connection could shine brightly, even in the darkest of times. The little girl stirred in her sleep, murmuring softly. Her mother leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "You were so brave tonight, my little one." She thought about how much courage her daughter had shown, seeking help when she saw her mother in pain. Despite her young age, she had understood something profound. Love sometimes requires action, and the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. Her mother felt pride swell in her heart, mixed with gratitude that her daughter's innocence had been paired with wisdom beyond her years. The mother then thought about herself. For so long, she had carried the weight of her responsibilities alone, believing that asking for help was a weakness. Tonight, she had learned otherwise. She had learned that there was strength in vulnerability, and that letting others in could bring relief, support, and hope. She realized that her tears were not a sign of failure, but a human expression of love and concern. For the first time in a long while, she felt a lightness in her chest, a small but growing sense of peace that reminded her that she could endure even the challenges that lay ahead. The stranger, who had quietly stayed to help throughout the evening, prepared to leave. He had offered guidance, encouragement, and companionship, helping the mother and daughter create their own little Christmas wonder. Before he left, the mother took his hands in hers. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "You've given us more than I can put into words. How can we ever repay you?" The stranger smiled gently. "There is no need for repayment," he said. "The joy you see in your daughter's eyes, the peace you feel in your heart, that is more than enough. Just remember this night and remember that small acts of kindness can make a huge difference. And perhaps one day, when someone else needs help, you can pass it forward." The mother nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She promised herself that she would carry this lesson forward, showing her daughter that even in difficult times, compassion could guide them. As the stranger stepped out into the quiet night, the mother returned her attention to her daughter. She noticed how peaceful the girl looked, her face softened by sleep, her small hand resting gently on the pillow. The mother felt a surge of love and determination. She would find a way to face the challenges ahead, not because life had become easy, but because she knew she was not alone. She had her daughter, she had hope, and she had the reminder that even strangers could bring light into their lives. The mother quietly left the room and returned to the small living area. She looked around at the handmade decorations, the paper stars, and the flickering candle. The apartment, though modest, now felt full of warmth and love. She realized that the true magic of Christmas was not in material things, but in shared moments, creativity, and care. She could feel it in the laughter, in the connection, and in the small acts of courage and kindness that had transformed the evening. She thought about the coming days and weeks, aware that life's challenges had not disappeared. There would still be bills to pay, work to complete, and hardships to face. But the memory of this night would stay with them, a reminder that even in difficult times, hope and joy could exist. She could face the future with renewed strength, knowing that love, resilience, and compassion were more powerful than any material gift. The little girl stirred again and opened her eyes slightly. "Mama," she whispered, her voice soft with sleep. The mother leaned down and smiled. "Yes, my love," she asked. "This was the best Christmas ever," the little girl said, her voice full of sincerity and warmth. "I know we didn't have gifts or a tree like other people, but I'm happy. I'm really happy." The mother felt tears well up in her eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude and joy. She held her daughter close, feeling the depth of their bond, and whispered, "I'm happy too, my little one. We made our own Christmas together." The mother spent a few more moments sitting by her daughter's bed, reflecting on the lessons of the evening. She thought about the courage it took for her daughter to reach out, the kindness it took for a stranger to respond, and the strength it took for her to accept help. She understood that life would continue to challenge them, but the memory of tonight would serve as a beacon of hope. It would remind them that love, bravery, and compassion could overcome fear, sadness, and loneliness. The mother then quietly cleaned up the apartment, putting away the simple decorations, but keeping a few paper stars on the walls as reminders of the night. She prepared a small breakfast for the next morning, imagining her daughter's excitement when she woke. Even the simplest meal would be filled with love, and she knew that her daughter would feel the care and attention she put into it. The mother felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing that they had created a meaningful memory together, one that would outshine any material gift. As the hours passed, the mother and daughter shared quiet moments of conversation, laughter, and gentle storytelling. They recounted the events of the evening, remembered the stranger's kind words, and spoke of dreams and hopes for the future. The little girl shared her wish to always help others, just as she had been helped tonight. The mother encouraged her, saying that her courage and empathy were gifts that could change the world, one small act at a time. The night slowly gave way to early morning, and the city outside began to wake with the soft sounds of people preparing for Christmas Day. In the apartment, the mother held her daughter close, whispering words of love and encouragement. She realized that this Christmas Eve, though not perfect, had given them something far more meaningful, a sense of connection, understanding, and the quiet magic of shared humanity. The mother also reflected on the stranger's visit. Though he had left, his presence lingered in their hearts. He had shown them the importance of compassion and the power of simply being there for someone in need. She resolved to carry that lesson forward, to show her daughter that kindness could be found everywhere, and that reaching out to help others was one of the most powerful ways to create joy and hope. As the little girl drifted back to sleep, the mother quietly sat beside her, thinking about the year behind them and the year ahead. She realized that hardships would continue, but the strength of their love and the lessons learned tonight would guide them through any challenge. She whispered a silent promise to herself and to her daughter that they would face the future together, with courage, compassion, and hope. By the time morning light crept through the small window, the apartment was filled with a gentle glow. The mother prepared a simple breakfast, and together they sat at the small table, sharing food, stories, and laughter. It wasn't the Christmas they had imagined at the beginning of the evening, but it was a Christmas that reflected their love, resilience, and the kindness that had entered their lives. The mother felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the joy in her daughter's eyes was more valuable than any material gift. The day unfolded slowly, filled with small moments of happiness. The mother and daughter walked to the nearby park, enjoying the crisp winter air and the simple pleasure of being together. They shared stories with each other, laughed at little jokes, and watched as other families celebrated the holiday around them. Though they did not have the grand festivities others enjoyed, they carried the warmth of the previous night with them. It was a warmth that could not be measured in gifts, money, or decorations. It was the warmth of connection, love, and hope. By evening, the mother realized that the stranger's words had stayed with them, that kindness, courage, and compassion were gifts more powerful than anything else. She felt gratitude for the small miracles of the evening, the courage of her daughter, the stranger's generosity, and the ability to create joy from simple moments. She held her daughter close, knowing that they had learned something invaluable, that even in the darkest times, love and hope could shine brightly, creating memories that would last a lifetime. That Christmas Eve had begun with tears and uncertainty, but it ended with laughter, warmth, and quiet joy. The mother, her daughter, and the stranger had together created a night filled with meaning, compassion, and connection. And as the mother watched her daughter fall asleep once more, she understood the true gift of the evening, the gift of love, courage, and the belief that even small acts of kindness could transform lives. The night passed, leaving behind a sense of hope and gratitude. The mother knew that challenges would continue, but she also knew that the memory of this Christmas Eve, the bravery of her daughter, the stranger's kindness, and their shared love, would guide them through anything. She whispered a silent prayer of thanks, promising to carry forward the lessons they had learned and to always remember the quiet magic that had filled their small apartment. And so Christmas came to their home, not with grandeur or riches, but with something far more precious: love, hope, and the unshakable bond between a mother and her daughter, strengthened by courage, compassion, and the simple power of human kindness.